What's up, guys? In the last couple of weeks, I've been getting a lot of questions about my Age of Empires 4 hotkeys and setup. So I thought I'd make this quick video and just go through my hotkeys and explain them and how and why I use them. Yeah, so start off, my TCs always go on 5 for me. If I have extra hot TCs, they get added to 5 as well. The reason I hotkey them instead of using the select all town center hotkey is because there are situations where I want to add other stuff to my TC hotkey. So with China, for example, I would like to add the Imperial Academy, which means that once I have it added, I can press the... Okay, let's say I have villagers in production. I can press T with my TC selected, and it will still produce from the Imperial Academy, the Imperial officials. So it just makes everything easy. So if I lose a Imperial official at some point, I can just very easily just rebuild it. I don't have to go and find the landmark. Yeah. Next after that, I have 6, which is my unique hotkey, if you would say. It doesn't really have a determined function. It depends on the civ I'm playing. So if I'm playing a water civ, I will have my docks on 6. If I'm playing Byzantines, I will have my mercenary camps on 6, and whenever there's like a unique building that I use a lot throughout the game, it will go on 6. So for example with China, that would be the Imperial Palace, where you want to be using this pretty regularly throughout the game, right? So that one will go on 6. But with other civs, I would have other buildings on 6. With Japanese, I would have the Imperial Siege Landmark on 6, and so on, right? Next up, we have the production. So stables go on 4. Barracks go on F2, which is 8 in here, but it's actually F2. And archer ranges, I have bound the select all archer ranges to F3. So a little bit why I only use the archer ranges on this one and why I hotkey my other production is because in a lot of situations in either the early game or in like extreme late game, you will have proxied production. So let's say for some reason I opened up with like proxied production. Once the game stabilizes and I'm in a normal position, I don't necessarily want to produce out of these buildings I would have over here, right? So when I'm using the hotkey, I can choose to unhotkey these production buildings and not produce from them. Same thing in the late game, you might have like 10 barracks over here, 10 barracks over here, and you would want to make units on only one side. If let's say you're fighting here, you wouldn't want to make units on this side at that time, right? So then you can unhotkey these production buildings. But if you're using the select all function, you have no option to unselect them. The reason I don't use it for archer range is because I literally ran out of hotkeys. I don't have enough hotkeys to put everything on. So archer ranges is the production building you would make the least out of in terms of like spreading it out. It would usually just be in your base. So I chose to use archer ranges for this. Same thing with the siege workshops. It's also a thing I would like to have siege workshop proxied, and I still do. But I just don't have enough hotkeys to hotkey everything. So they also had to go on the select all siege workshop hotkey. And after that I have, it's on 7, select all blacksmiths and technology buildings, so universities and like landmarks, like with Abbasid, the House of Wisdom and stuff, going this hotkey, right? 8 I have markets, 9 monasteries. So that's pretty straightforward. In terms of army, I will have melee infantry on 1, cav on tilde, so the hotkey to the left of 1, ranged infantry on 2, and then siege on 3. This is usually how I hotkey my army. And then I will have 2 run by hotkeys basically. So Q and W I use as hotkeys. So if we imagine I'm playing an opponent and they had villagers here, I would use these hotkeys to harass with my knights, horsemen, infantry, whatever I have, right? They will usually go on this hotkey. I will also hotkey in the early game if I'm pro scouting. My pro scouts will go on Q, so then I wouldn't use this hotkey for the run by. I would have it just this one for the run by. but my pro scouting, my pro scouts will go on Q in the early game. So, back and picking them up. Okay, yeah, so they go on Q. My early game scout, let's see if I can find it. It's right there. We'll go on 3 usually because I don't have any siege in the early game, right? So in the early game, this scout will be on 3 when I'm scouting around to see what my opponent is up to. Yeah, and I think that's it in terms of my hotkey setup. Now we can go into some of the more intricate settings, which I think there's some interesting stuff to cover. One important thing, I'm using exclusive control groups, which means one unit can't be on the same control group, or 2 different control groups rather. It can only be on one control group at a time. Yeah. On idle villager, I have selected center camera because whenever I have an idle villager, I want my camera to jump wherever that is, so I know where I'm pulling the villager from. If you have only select, then it's like you could have an idle villager on the other side of the map, and then you pull it to somewhere else. That's super far away, which is very inefficient, right? Military, I don't really need to see that. That's fine. Same thing with everything else. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah, in terms of the hotkeys here, nothing super special on this thing. I just have the return or just from Seek Shelter, which I think is a very good hotkey to use. Cancel last item in production queue is also a good hotkey to use. Unit selection, I think, is a place where there's a lot of interesting things you can look at. So select all units can be useful if you want to, let's say, find your traders, or you want to find your let's say your scouts or whatever, right? Like you're looking for like a specific group of units, using this and then clicking down in the UI to find the unit type you're looking for can be useful. This hotkey is super useful for a bunch of scenarios where it's like focus on selected units. The most common scenario to use this one is you're collecting the relics. So you have your monk selected, you click on the relic on the map, you click, and then for me it's Shift R to look back here, and then I can keep holding Shift and just click it to the monastery, right? Same thing if you're building a monk, you can just build a monk. You click there, Shift R, and Shift click back to the monastery, and they will go and pick up and come back with the relic, right? That's makes picking up relics a lot smoother. Let's see, next up. Idle economical units, I'm on space. It's something I recommend using. Whatever you're comfortable with. And that's another thing about hotkeys, like obviously the keyboard is always going to be more efficient and more precise than using the mouse. So whenever you can use the keyboard, you should try to do it. But it's also important that you have a hotkey setup that you're comfortable with. Because the whole idea is for you to play faster thanks to your hotkeys. So it's important that you find things that are comfortable and that works for you. These hotkeys I also use, so that's also very nice just to, let's say when I want to build houses, I can do this and, you know, go DD, something like that. Usually you would go on something like, well, I don't have any guys mining on wood, gold and stone right now, but if I did, I could go like this to cycle through a villager and then just build a house. It's a quick way to grab a villager whenever you want to build something. Then we have the religious units. So it says F12 here, but for me on my keyboard F12 is caps lock. So I use caps lock to bounce between my religious units, which again just makes picking up relics a lot simpler in general. And then we have the select all military units on screen, and then this one I think is really nice to use, because in general in this game, in AoE4, like you're gonna have units like this out on the map, right, in different places, doing harassment and whatnot. So these units, you don't want to like use the select all army hotkey, because then these units will get pulled away, right, and then you won't have units out on the map to harass. and be in position. Let's say you want to decap a sacred site, whatever you want to do, right? So the select all military units on screen, I think is very nice because it just allows you to select all these units very quickly without having to do like drag stuff, right? And the drag stuff gets the villagers and everything as well. So here you can just select everything on screen. And same thing if you have units split up somewhere else. Let's say you have a bunch of reinforcements popping and you're getting attacked, you can just do the same thing where you do. For me it's Alt-E to select all the units on screen. So like it's like these units, these units, these units, and then you can hotkey them as you please, right? Next up, the idle military hotkey units I think is useful to use when you ever want to grab reinforcements. So this one I also use quite frequently. Naval units, it's also alright to use, I think, because you're going to be way less spread out on water usually. Usually water is more about like big concentrated fights, so using the select all naval military I think is more fine than using the select all military units hotkey, which I don't use, right? Cycle through scouts can be nice to find your scouts. Also select the first scout in the early game. And yeah, here you have the a few new hotkeys that got added a couple of patches ago that I think are extremely nice to use, and I use a lot these days. And I made a combination with these hotkeys, so Alt-1, Alt-2, Alt-tilde, Alt-3 to select melee infantry, ranged infantry, cavalry, and siege. But then I combine them with this function here, add selected units to control group 1. So I do the same hotkey, Alt-1, Alt-2, Alt-3, and Alt-tilde, but I do it where you'll just tap the number twice, right? So what that means is in game, so I can do Alt-1 to select my infantry, right? And then I can do Alt-1 twice to move them to the hotkey. So if you remove the hotkey first, it's Alt-1 to select the infantry, and then double tap it to hotkey them. Same thing with the range units. Alt-2 to select them, and then if you do it fast, it's just Alt-2 select and hotkey, right? Same thing here. Double tap to select and hotkey my cav. Double tap to select and hotkey my siege. Which makes because all the micro in big fights in AoE4 is just making sure that the correct units are attacking each other, right? And this just makes microing big fights very easy when you can just very, very quickly select the correct unit type you want to use. The only time like this is a little bit awkward is if, let's say, you're playing Malians and you have archers and jab throwers. Like, you don't necessarily want the archers and jab throwers to attack the same thing, right? So that's the only time that this can be a little bit more clunky, but it wouldn't really be any easier to do it without it, right? Yeah, so it's just like you can see, if I remove all the hotkeys, I can very quickly just like that, right? Then I have everything hotkeyed. Different hotkeys. And that's another hotkey we should talk about, is the remove units from the selected control or selected hotkey. So let's say I want to split off 2 of these guys to go and decap the sacred sites. For me, I have Control-T as remove selected units from control groups. So now they're not control grouped anymore, right? And I can go back to using these guys. Same thing if I want to, like, you know, go and send a guy to the gold mine down there. Control-T to deselect him. And he's no longer on the hotkey. And you can find that hotkey right next to the other ones we were looking at before, which should be like... should be here in the control groups, I think. Yeah, here. Remove selected units from all control groups. After that... yes, we have the Imperial Official, so when you're playing China or Sushi, just being able to cycle through the Imperial Officials. So I have the same caps lock which I use for these guys, but for the Imperial Officials I used alt caps lock. So it's kind of similar thematically. Then it should be onto the buildings. Yeah, so here I already talked about this a little bit. I have technology buildings on 7, And these hotkeys I don't really use very much. I use the economy buildings, like when I want to upgrade like wheelbarrow or pro scout or eco upgrades. I'll use this one and then tab through the buildings, right? So that's usually this. The select all military production I don't really use that much unless I have some barracks I didn't hotkey or something like that. I'll use this just to grab them into a hotkey, but in general I don't use it. Yeah, this one I basically just use as a camera hotkey essentially to just like focus on the main town center. Or if you're coming from StarCraft 2, this is basically like a base camera hotkey, right? So you can just cycle through the town centers. Select archer ranges, siege workshops, religious buildings I already mentioned, markets. And yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. Obviously, I've rebound a lot of the default hotkeys to different stuff, but I don't think there's anything super unique here in the unit abilities or general commands. Everything is just pretty standard for the most part. So yeah, that is how my hotkeys work and how I use them. So hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And if you have anything else you would want like to see, any other video you would want me to make, let me know as well. And I'll see you all next time.